And I wanted to show you just how quickly you can set this up. So that's why I came back at you so quick. And also, while I was riding up here, I thought of something. You ever wonder, how come you know something? How do you know it? I thought when I was in the Air Force, I didn't know anything about this. Well, the reality is you gotta talk to people who know if you want to be successful. You gotta talk to people who know. Now, some of the stuff that I'm doing here, I kind of fill in the blanks and I do it my way, and it's, you know, a little quicker, a little smoother. I bring, you know, aviation technology to this, and so it's a little bit different. But I learned about this from a guy by the name of Alan Savory, and he has dedicated his life to running the Savory Institute, and they focus on reversing desertification, and they do it with grazing animals, you know, all kinds of grazing animals. And I would encourage you to go and find some of their material. And he had a guy working for him that I wound up having the pleasure of meeting. His name was Chris Kirsten, and he actually showed me around his farm at one time that he was working. And now he works for the Savory Institute, and he's an excellent teacher, and he's the one that impressed on me the whole second bite thing. Matter of fact, I'll tell you, I was at a small farmers conference out in California that Chris was speaking at, and I went to one of his classes in the morning, and then in the afternoon I went to the same exact class, and he looked at me and he says, "What are you doing here?" Like that. But I thought the information that he was passing on was so important that I wanted to hear it again, and I wanted to take notes. And I was speaking at that conference, and so I was nervous in the morning, and when I sat in his class, I don't think I got everything. So anyway, I did that, and I touched on that briefly when I was down there. There's where I just was, down there in the corner. Beautiful day, isn't it? Beautiful farm. And I touched on that subject about, you know, obviously I'm doing this to feed cows, and those cows become T-bone steaks or milk. So this is feed for them. And I want to take good care of this system because it'll be feed for them next year and next year and next year and for my grandchildren. You know, if it's taken care of properly, it will only increase in fertility if it's taken care of properly. And you might think, oh, gee, grazing cattle, you'll turn that place into the Sahara Desert. Well, not if you do it right. And there's sort of a tipping point, and you got to think about this. If you go too far with grazing, yeah, you'll turn it into the Sahara Desert, for sure. I'm not sure that's how the Sahara Desert got made, but so don't quote me on that. I have no idea. I wasn't there. But grazing is not only good for the animals because this forage is going from the ground right into their mouths. It's full of all the nutrients that's in this. In this particular field I'm on right now, I don't know how well you can see it. I need a new camera for sure, but this has got a lot of alfalfa on it because this is much higher ground, and when we seeded this, we could get this to get started here, where you can't get it started on lower ground, but you can get it to go later on once there's other species out there by seeding and then letting the cows walk over it. I'm wondering how I know that, but I just do. But anyway, the alfalfa up here has a really, really deep taproot. And this field, especially, you're only going to want them to take one bite and then move. One bite and move. So I'm going to let them have the entire shot here. This is an 8-acre field, so I gave them about 3 of it. I'm going to let them have the whole shot. They'll go through and they'll take everything off. I'll keep an eye on it, a close eye on it, and then I'll move them over to the other side. Might be like 5 days, I don't know. But the point that I'm trying to make that would be helpful to people that are out there that hear this, you might not have really fertile ground like this is. Well, I'm here to tell you this was called the sand hill when I bought this place 15 years ago. This was called the sand hill. That's what the locals, the people here, called it. And a guy told me, you ever put a plow in that and you'll never get anything to grow again, because right under here it's like beach. It's like beach sand. And there's probably, oh, I don't know, 5, 6, 8 inches of soil on top of that. I did make lots and lots of compost and spread it out here before it was seeded, and that had a lot to do with it. But grazing does amazing things to soils. So let's say that you had a nominal piece of property that was kind of sandy and kind of mossy and not much going on. Didn't look like you could graze animals there. Put them out. Start grazing them. Even if you have to put your round bale feeder out and feed them out there, do it. Because every time they defecate, it's like this little world that gets dropped on the ground. There's all these little beings in there. And from there, all kinds of things start to happen, and it moves out in all different directions. And when, especially cows, when they eat like mature plants that the seeds are ready to go, and then they defecate them out, those seeds will take root right in their manure, and it's a perfect environment for them to grow. And you, like I've said before, you can even game the system. I haven't been doing, I said I was going to do it this year, but I just haven't. Maybe a little bit later on I can do this, but you could, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but you can, if you're going to give them a little bit of grain, you can put different seeds in there. You know, you could put alfalfa seeds or clover, trefoil, timothy grass, all kinds of grasses you can put in there. And when they eat it, a lot of it will make it through them. And then when they do their thing out on the field, you're actually planting. So if you had nominal soils, let's say that you were on a, let's say an island, say out in the middle of Lake Michigan, let's say, and the soils were kind of sandy, you would want to start grazing your cattle out there just as soon as you possibly could, so that they would start to massage that ground and start to grow things out there. And it's surprising what a difference it makes by grazing cattle over it. This field especially, wow, 10 years ago, it just looked like an old baseball field. That's what it reminded me of. And I would cut a little bit of hay off of it, and I just figured, well, that's the way it's going to be. There's not going to be any hay up there. Did some inquiring around, but it was really the Savory Institute people that helped me to figure out how to do this. I had lunch with Alan Savory one time, and I told him about this field, and I told him, hey, well, this is what I'm going to do. And he actually chastised me. He's an older gentleman. He chastised me. I got a picture of me and him. Yep, he's a great guy, really nice guy. All right, there we go. So if your soils are nominal and you think, well, I'm never going to have a field that I could cut hay off or graze cattle on, put them out there, right? Feed them out there. There's a concept known as bale grazing, where you put your bales out. You can put them out in the summertime and cover them. And then as the winter progresses, you pull the covers off of them and then put a bale ring around them. So they're dispersed, because where the cows are eating, usually they'll lay down pretty close to that, and they'll defecate close to it too. So you'll have these big spots, you know, and then get out there and get some seed on it. So you can do it. And this field right here is actually testimony to that. As I was putting this fence up, I thought, wow, what a difference. And so now when we get torrential rains, there's something here for that water to not just run through. The vegetation that's on here will just benefit from that quite a bit. And also I'm seeing species pop up here that we just did not plant, right? So you know, there's seeds in the air, and it's the cows, you know, they'll eat down there and then come up here and manure. So stuff gets moved around quite a bit. Strategy that I'm going to be looking at here is, let's say I let some of this alfalfa get up really high so that when they eat it, I know that they're getting a bunch of seeds, and then they take it into that next field. I can make that happen. I actually can make that happen, and that's not a bad idea. What you'd want to do is, let's say the opening to that field is probably 10 feet wide, the gate is. If I saved, let's say, 50 feet of this field and let it go to seed, and then walked them through here on their way down there, oh, they'd stop and they'd take a bite here and there, you know. But you'd have to push them, because they would say, oh, there's alfalfa here, I'm going to just stop and eat this, and eat it again and eat it again, because they're basically lazy. They're a lot like young, well, they're a lot like people. All right, anyone can farm.